Okay, so this is going to be the summary of the part when I talk inside the brain. So I started off talking about the grey matter and white matter. So in the spinal cord, you have the grey matter in the middle and white matter surrounding it. In the brain, it's opposite. The grey matter is on the outside and the white matter is on the inside. So what is white matter and grey matter? This is a basic neuron. You have the cell body and the axon. Axon is surrounded by these swan cells, obviously to increase in conduction, and these swan cells make the neuron look white. But in the cell body, it does not have swan cells, so they look grey. So where you see grey matter, you will find the cell body of the neuron, and where you see white matter, you'll see the axon. And then I went on to talk about the difference between nuclei and ganglion. Nuclei and ganglion are both grey matter, but nuclei are found in the CSF and ganglion are found in the penis. Okay, and then I spoke about the most outer portion of the head, which is the skin, and then to the bone is called the scalp. The scalp is an acronym for the skin, connective tissue, aponeurosis, loose areolar connective tissue, and periosteum. And then after the periosteum, you have the bone. The bone is made up of compact bone, and in between you have something called the diploid, which is the spongy bone of the skull. Spongy bone contains these diploic veins over here. They're within the spongy portion of the skull. And then we spoke about the meninges. The meninges is broken up into 3 parts. So talking from the most outer aspect, you have the skin, the scalp, the bone, and then you have the dura mater, the arachnoid, and the pia mater. Okay. So once we talked about the meninges, we can show this picture. So dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater, that's just basically stuck onto the brain. The subarachnoid space is where you find the CSF, and we spoke about the CSF when we spoke about the ventricles. So the ventricles, you just need to know how it looks like. So the ventricles, you have 4 ventricles, 2 lateral, and then the third and the fourth, and between the ventricles you have connections, and I drew it over here. So for instance, the third and fourth is connected by the interventricular foramen. The lateral and the third is connected by interventricular foramen. Third and fourth by the cerebral aqueduct. And then after the fourth, you have the central canal of the spinal cord. Okay, you need to know the structure of the lateral ventricle because they'll ask you, because they have different horns. One projecting into the posterior part, so the occipital horn, temporal horn, frontal horn, and then the central part of the body of the ventricle, lateral ventricle. You need to know that the medial part, so the body and the temporal horn, are the ones that make the CSF. Where is CSF made? Because the ventricle is lined by something called epidermal cells. Epidermal cells, specialized portion is called the choroplexus. So here, where you see red, is the choroplexus. Choroplexus you can find in the third ventricle. I already said where. So in the body and in the temporal horn, and you can find it in the fourth ventricle too. The choroplexus makes the CSF from blood. So blood makes CSF, fills the ventricle, and from the ventricle it will flow in through, so lateral into the third, through the interventricular foramen, into the fourth through the cerebral aqueduct, and in the fourth is where you find the foramen lusca and foramen magendi, and these are basically connections from the ventricle into the subarachnoid space. Subarachnoid space is underneath the arachnoid, so in between the arachnoid and the pia mater. The subarachnoid space is flowing, there's CSF flowing in the subarachnoid space. How does it exit? Well, where you find the sinuses, so you're not going to find sinuses over here, you can find it more at the top. The main one is the superior sagittal sinus. It will drain the CSF. Yeah. But how does the CSF from the subarachnoid space go above the subarachnoid? How does the subarachnoid space the CSF go above it into the past the dura mater is by these arachnoid granulations. So the arachnoid granulations project through the arachnoid and the dura mater, and then allows the CSF to flow from the subarachnoid space into the sinuses.